He is. Oh, there he is. Hold on, we'll get him in here. There he is.
What's up, guys?
That's not a
What's that?
Hey, good morning.
All right. Good morning, everyone. We are live. So I got Mike Webb here, the investing fireman. I got Tyler and Matt Mojo Mindset. So welcome, everyone.
Good
Thanks for
morning.
having us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate
So
it.
why don't you guys maybe quickly introduce yourself real quick? I know, Matt, this is your first time meeting Tyler and Mike. So maybe one of you can introduce yourself real quickly to Matt.
Sure, I'll go quick. My name is Mike. I currently live in Maryland. I've been real estate investing for about 10-ish years, and I'm still employed full-time as a career firefighter, kind of like in the DC metro area. And I have 2 boys, and I've been married for 15 years. That's about it.
Love it. Love it. Tyler, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Am I up?
Cool. Yep, you're up.
Sure. Tyler Thrush out of Southern California. I was a fireman for 14 years until this past year I was medically retired. Married with 2 kids, and I am still actively investing in Boise and Southern California.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Matt?
Yeah, I'll be quick. So my wife and I currently active duty Coast Guard. She's the brains, so she's in law school. I'm a helicopter pilot, so I'm just a stick wiggler at heart. And then in terms of real estate investing, I basically utilized VA house hack in flight school. And so I got 2 properties in Pensacola, and then we did a VA house hack of a triplex here in New Orleans, which we do. We live in 1 unit, medium-term rental, the 2nd unit. So it's like a shotgun style. And then in the bottom, we have an Airbnb. So pretty much self-managing the medium-term and the Airbnb, and then property management in Florida. So it's kind of my quick journey so far.
Awesome introduction, folks. So before we move on real quickly, Tyler and Mike have a podcast, First Responder Financial Freedom, out there. So I have their links in the chat, so go check it out, go subscribe. And yeah, so I guess today's main, we're going to kind of discuss kind of those things that the gurus or people online don't tell us before we get into real estate investing or investing in general. So who wants to start off with this one?
Well, yeah, I see Tyler just put. I was going to say, make sure you listen to the episode that just came out today. It's a pretty good guest. It's your episode. So, gurus. All right. Can you say the question one more time? I saw a butterfly.
Squirrel.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of, the things that we don't really know about once we get our first property or once we get into investing, right? Kind of like when we start, you're kind of given like, oh, as long as you cash flow, make sure you have the down payment, have some reserves. But what are those kind of hidden things that the people online don't really kind of give you a good understanding of once you get into it?
Sure. So I'll speak to this from the lens of just rental properties, because I think that what you just asked, depending on what you are talking about as far as rentals, flips, midterm, short term, they all kind of have some little nuance to them. But just the bread and butter, long term rental property, like buy and hold type thing, that was what I first started with. And some of the things that, as I think back, that were problematic or not expected at the time was there was a lot, frankly, but I think it's also good to think about how big of a time horizon you're looking at this. So if you're talking about it from a month to month standpoint, there's a lot. If you zoom out 3, 4, 5 years of holding that property, there's really, it balances out, I guess you could say. But the things that really stood out to me was turnover and vacancy were, I realized very quickly that a bad turnover or an extended vacancy absolutely decimates any pro forma numbers that you come up with. And that's, unfortunately, it's sooner or later going to happen to you, I think. Like you might have a great tenant for 6, 7 years, and then all of a sudden, whenever it's time to turn it over, you have to spend 3 times what you originally thought. Because when you crunched your numbers, to get a guy was $20 an hour to do work. Well, then you have a pandemic, inflation, 42 other things. And now the same work that you thought was going to be a $15,000 turnover is 40. So that's just things that come to my mind.
I can piggyback off of Mike's on that. And when you're starting to purchase rental properties, the temptation is always to go cheaper on materials as you're trying to save money and make a more profitable rental. But like we'll take carpet, for example. Carpet and rentals do not mix in my experience. It's just you're going to pay for it over and over. Might as well buy some bulletproof materials. And I think that goes throughout the house. And I think the thing that I did not do and would recommend now is when you're purchasing a rental, purchase and rehab or update with the end in mind. What are materials that are going to get the longest life for you to minimize that turnover cost? And I think that's what Mike's referring to. Every time that you're replacing carpet, certain kinds of paint, whatever it may be, it's going to just eat away any profit that you have. If you're shooting for $300 a month on pro forma and you have to replace $4,000 expense, you're negative for the year right off the bat. So
Yeah, I think something we experienced recently was I think you can easily get caught up in maybe a spreadsheet, right? So you get caught up running the numbers, and maybe at the end of the day, cash flows 1 or 200. But I think if you kind of what Mike alluded to was that long-term horizon, long-term perspective. You're kind of putting your money to work in real estate as a sector to add to your portfolio. And something we experienced was that tenant turnover, right? So you don't really know how much you can pad in reserves, but it's always nice to overestimate in terms of your underwriting and be a little bit more conservative for those rainy days that will happen. The AC fuse blows during a thunderstorm because you're in Florida, right? Like that happens. And, I think it's not a pinpoint number, I would say, for reserves. I think it's like, but it helps you sleep at night. So whether that's 5K, 10K, 5%, 10%, you know what I mean? Like it's going to vary from person to person, but I wouldn't get hung up on too much into the spreadsheets versus like getting out, talking to people. Hey, talking to contractors, talking to agents, talking to property managers, like what are you seeing real time so that I can validate maybe what you're seeing on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, totally agree. Like Mike, on your point too, like how you kind of started off, how there's many different strategies too in real estate. So I think that's one important thing is kind of figuring out what strategy works best for yourself, or what guru or whoever you're following online, or do they align with what your vision is. So I think, did you guys face those type of challenges when you folks started also, as far as maybe what strategy you want to get into? Because it sounds like, Mike, you've kind of changed. Right now you're doing self-storage, so has that changed along the way?
100%. So when I started out, my goal was to buy 20 or 30 rentals. Like that was the goal. As I've transitioned through like different phases of my investing journey, that goal has changed, and sometimes out of necessity. So I started out with just a regular long-term rental property. Long story short is, whenever I went to go cash out my private lender, it didn't appraise for what I needed it to. So I had to leave money in the deal, and I didn't have that money to leave in the deal. So that's when my strategy changed to wholesaling. So, and I don't, I just presented on this last week at my meetup. And one of the things that it said was like, the topic was 6 things I wish I knew about investing when I started. And one of them is like, you always hear it, like go narrow and go deep. Well, my intent was to stay narrow and deep on one type of property in a certain area, and that's what I was going to do. And I think that there's a lot of benefits to that, but I also don't think that venturing outside of that one track mind thinking is a bad thing, because ultimately it's made me a better, well-rounded investor, I think. But yes, it's changed. And now, like, honestly, I've thinned out my rental portfolio compared to what it was. Like, I think we have about 15 units now as far as single family. I mean, like with commercial, we have some other stuff, but like my original intent was I'm going to go buy 20 rentals, and now it's like completely shifted. So, and I think that's normal. It's not necessarily the shiny object syndrome. It's just you mature, life changes, your aspirations change. And as you take the lumps, you decide what you like and don't like. That's all.
Yeah, I think it's the same. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll say same thing. I think as you progress and you start doing deals, you find out what you do like, what you don't like, and then you gravitate towards that. And then I was talking about this with somebody recently. It's what do I want my day to day look like, and what strategy is now going to be the best vehicle. I think before it was I want to make. I mean, I want to make extra money. I want to have investments, and I want to retire early. Now it's what do I want to look like? And so I was hanging out with my old squad partner, and we were discussing, well, private lending is so enticing and is what I love because I am not beholden to the contractors or anything like that. I can do that from anywhere, and you dictate more of the conversation as opposed to having to be available whenever the other person needs you. So I agree with Mike. I think doing all of this makes you a more well-rounded investor. And in that example, I know Mike's doing hard money as well. You couldn't be, in my opinion, a good hard money lender had you not been a flipper, a wholesaler, and a landlord, because now you know what you would need to do if you took the property over, if you needed to keep it as a rental. You understand all of these things. So yeah, I think it's cool as you mature, you kind of find out, and it always differs on person to person. So I know somebody now that their maturation is 20 short-term rentals, and that's what they're at right now. And I would hate to do that, to be honest with you. That's just not my jam. So I would not want to do it.
Yeah, great point. We were joking about right before you hopped on, though, that you're like the busiest retired guy that we know. Yeah.
No, it's not good.
Yeah.
So Matt, so maybe this question for you, because you also do short-term rental, right? So like, what's the difference or what's the challenges you face? Like, how do you handle difficult tenants?
Sure. Yeah, I think you can alleviate, not 100%, but maybe 80% of the maybe clientele or target audience, just how you market your short-term rental. So for example, you think New Orleans, you're thinking short-term rental, immediately you're like, oh, dude, there's probably bachelor parties, bachelorette parties. I mean, there's festivals every weekend. There's a food cook-off every other weekend. Like, what kind of clientele are you really trying to get? And I think the way that we've kind of navigated our short-term rental is we like to target, family group travelers, because with the 4-bedroom in our sort of a residential market, like we're close enough to take public transportation to the city. You can walk around, have shops, restaurants nearby. And, there's a big school like Tulane, Loyola that are, probably a mile and a half away. So I think we've been able to navigate that by doing a lot of the work on the front end, vetting the tenants, vetting the guests. Airbnb, I would say they do a decent job, but they're business of getting bookings, right? So I think they have this, instant booking feature where if guests were positively reviewed, 5 stars or whatever from previous hosts, then you can like instant book. And I think that kind of community, it could be good and bad, right? But I think when you target like group travelers, families that are here and they want multi-generational, like, we've had grandparents, parents, and children of like the same family, but they could finally be in their own space. Each one has their own bedroom and they can still explore the city and what New Orleans has to offer, as opposed to maybe just going down Bourbon Street and coming back, wrecking the place or anything like that. So, knock on wood, that's kind of what our target audience is. And thankfully we've been able to eliminate some of the riffraff. But yeah, we've had a, party that we've had to shut down once or twice, and that's just the nature of it. So I think, the term lifestyle asset comes to mind, where it's like, what lifestyle do you want to live with your investing portfolio? And so for us living here, we can self-manage, but like, we're not going to be able to run that Airbnb when we move on from this place. And, the military PCSs us to another area.
And you just switched one to midterm, right? So are you still doing short term and now doing midterm, or?
Yeah. So and I think, so here's something, I'm sure you've probably had some midterm rental experts on your shows, but I think you definitely get the professional clientele, they're here on a 1 to 2 month work contract. So they're working, they're going to shop. So there are lots of hospitals here nearby, as well as oil and gas industry is big here. So this past summer, we had a 90+ day booking of 2 interns that were transiting to Shell for an internship, right? And so you're able to get like, hey, their focus is trying to get a job, right? So they're working all day, coming back. They want just a nice, comfortable place they can, rest. And then if they want to go out, they can still explore the city. But, I think at the end of the day, their priorities are not to be partying for the weekend and then taking a flight back to home to, I guess, real reality, right? So I think with the medium term rental, you're able to target that type of niche or that audience of that targeted avatar that you want.
Great points. Let's see. Talking about, so we have another question here. What are hidden costs of property management? Maybe has anyone discussed this before you got into investing, like what to look for property management, or do you guys self-manage?
I have a property manager. I don't know if it's the actual hidden costs of property management. I think when you hire the wrong property manager, then things become more expensive. And number two, I would say, is if your property management company also handles a lot of the repairs. In my experience, especially when we owned in Dallas in the early 2000s, we got nickel and dimed with repairs all of the time. And I felt like, are they supplementing their management fee by, oh, your dishwasher's broken, the mailbox is broken? And when you're a remote investor, and this is before a lot of the things that we do now, as far as checking on things with video, that wasn't really a reality back then in 2003 and 4. I mean, maybe it was, but I was not doing it. So I think for me, the biggest expense would be A, the wrong property manager, and then B, the nickel and diming you on those little fees.
Any thoughts of self-managing on your end? No?
No.
I started out self-managing and transitioned to a property manager. And since then, I've transitioned a total of 3 times, different management companies.
Wow.
There's pros and cons to both. At the end of the day, nobody's probably going to care as much as you do. But I think you need to be realistic about what your skill sets are and the time you can devote. If you have 1 or 2, and they're not far from your house, like, manage it. Like, it's going to first off teach you how to manage the manager once you self-manage a little bit, because you learn first time you go to rent court and figure out the paperwork and all the stuff that goes along with registering. Like in Maryland, you have to register with the like MDE for the lead inspections and all these like little nuances that you may not know if you're in Hawaii or New Orleans, right?
Sure.
So there is pros and cons to it. At a certain point, though, like Tyler said earlier, you have to kind of think about what you want your ideal day to look like. And again, if you have 1 or 2, probably not a big deal. But if you have a bunch of stuff going on and maybe still have a W-2 job or a family, or God forbid, any activities outside of real estate, it's gonna come up. Like, things are gonna happen, then you have to deal with it, and that's fine. But I think with a property manager, it's just one buffer in between you and all the noise. And if you want the death of 1,000 cuts, self-manage a bunch of properties. I'm not saying it can't be done. I just had talked to a guy the other day who has 45 properties. He self-manages, owns his own company, but he's also got some systems and processes. And frankly, just to rewind a little bit, like, thinking about your end tenant in mind, like we were just talking about, like, if you have somebody that's an intern at Shell, this is very generally speaking here, like, chances are they're going to be a better quality resident than if you're buying like $30,000 and $40,000 row homes in the middle of like some inner city. Again, that's a very broad statement, and I get that that's not necessarily true with both categories. However, in my experience, like, the hidden cost with the property management is like what Tyler said. You're renting to lower end customers, you're going to end up with management and maintenance intensive issues on the regular. So that was a very roundabout way to say turnover and maintenance costs is a big hidden cost.
Yeah, but that, like you said, man, that death by 1,000 cuts, it starts adding up, right? And then the less systems and processes that you have in place, you're very reactive as opposed to maybe proactive of like, hey, here's how you submit a maintenance request, so you're not getting called at late in the night, right? You're having a tenant portal, or those are the kind of little things that I feel like you hear about the horror stories, but then if you kind of like work your way back, it's like, what safeguards or what gates did you put in place to prevent that from happening? And then if it's like, well, I'm just hoping, like hope is not a real, like a strategy for long-term growth, I would say.
Yeah, I think the thing that really surprised me was maybe how long it takes to really get a property stabilized. So even though it could be rent ready, or you have a tenant in place, it's still like you were talking about, Mike, knowing those little things in your market, right? The paperwork that you have to file or certain things like that, but just how to get something stabilized as far as if you are self-managing, even if you have a property manager, like collecting rent, when your rent comes in, what happens if they don't pay that month, your expenses, your utilities. So I think for me that was kind of a surprise, and I that's one of the biggest mistakes I made. I got kind of a decent amount of properties fairly quickly, and even though they're all like rent ready, it was just kind of like each property is kind of its own, and to get each one stabilized in its own right does take a different amount of time, and even the time of year you get it. So being in Hawaii, I didn't really realize too much Pittsburgh how cold it got, and I didn't realize how difficult it could be to find tenants that time of year. So for me, that's something that caught me off guard, is kind of how long it takes a property to really get stabilized.
I think to add on, one of the mistakes that I made, and this is for those that are maybe a pretty niche kind of group, but it's like, you're house hacking, but you're doing rent by the room. And so there's this fine line of, your tenants, but you want to be friendly because you're living with the people, right? And so for me, I think my mistake was like, I mean, I was friends with, because we were all just students, right, going to the same training. So we were all good friends. And so I think I was covering a lot of costs for like, hey, tenant turnover. He's like, hey man, I like left some of the furniture in the room. And I'm like, man, like, don't worry about it. I'll just go ahead and put it on Facebook Marketplace for you, or I'll go ahead and leave it in the garage. And next thing you know, my garage is full of like 3 and 4 people's collection of just old furniture that they didn't have. And so the mistake I made was like, distinguishing that between a business and that friendly relationship. But it is hard, right? Because you're living with these guys or gals, and you still want to have that I think barrier of like, hey, this is a rental property, but at the same time we're living in it. So I maybe skirted the lines of like being too friendly, and I ate those costs on my end. So I don't know, if you're self-managing with roommates, that's just something to consider, right? What does that look like? Are you creating those expectations up front, which I didn't. So
And I saw this post on X, and I don't know, I forget who was on the live I talked about, and this kind of represents, I think, real estate or investing for myself. And maybe I shouldn't look at it this way, but I don't know if you guys feel the same way. So it was when I was 29, I was surprised when shit went wrong. At 34, I'm surprised when shit goes right.
I mean, it's pretty true.
Yeah, I mean like I said, you realize that stuff's gonna happen, and that's just kind of how it is with investing in real estate or investing in general, and you kind of just figure it out. And I think that's why, being in the military or first responders, I think a lot of it is just we kind of just figure things out as we go, right? You have a blueprint, or you have some background and training and scenarios and whatnot, but at the end of the day, no situation is the same, and you kind of got to have a solution or figure it out as you go, right?
Yeah. And I would just say that's with life, outside of whatever your profession is. Like when you're young, you think like you see the world through like a very narrow blinders, and then as you get older you realize like you're just a small minute piece of this puzzle. Like, so I think with investing it's true, and with life it's definitely true too.
It's like when you learn how to do AutoX in the Fire Academy, it's like you have this perfect purchase point. Everything's calm around you. Nothing's going on. Oh, this is how you do it. And then you show up on scene and there's blood everywhere, people screaming. Your equipment maybe is not working because somebody forgot to check it out. It's like life in general.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm going to buy a rental spit off $400 or $500 a month every month for the rest of my life. And I'm going to, like Mike said, I'm going to buy 20 or 30 of them and be done. But yeah, now I'm surprised when I don't get a call from somebody in a month as far as a property or some type of issue as far as, oh, hey, this needs to be fixed.
Yep, great point. Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. Actually, I was talking to Mike earlier about this before we got on, but I had a post on Instagram and it's getting all kind of comments, and I don't know if you want to say hate or whatnot, but you guys seen the proposal for the unrealized 25% tax? Yeah, so I posted that, and then some part of it was, what about unrealized losses? Can we get a credit for like unrealized losses? And there's a whole big back and forth, and people arguing about it. So have you guys thought about that? I know it only supposed to affect the ultra wealthy, but do you guys have any thoughts about how this may trickle down or whatnot?
To be frank, I have not done the fact checking to see exactly what this states. I believe it was Kamala Harris that stated this. So I don't want to go solely based off of what I see on social media. But if that is in fact the way it's proposed, I honestly don't understand how you can sit there and argue that that's a good idea. Like the unrealized gain, it's just, oh, and you're punking me, right? It's like you're just waiting for it. Like, please tell me you don't actually believe this is a good idea. But I can't speak to it much more than that because, like I said, I haven't dove into it, and I don't want to be one of those people that just sees a snippet on social media and then all of a sudden I'm just spreading the misinformation.
Come on, Mike. Where's the fun in that? Let's go.
Yeah, we'll get Aaron. We'll get Aaron on for this.
Yeah, you get shadow banned again.
I think it's crazy too because I was listening. There's a podcast called All In. I'm not sure if you guys have ever listened to it. Super interesting. And so they were talking about it, and it was funny because not the way they were presenting it, but just the facts. It was like, oh, but don't worry. If you can't pay all of it, we'll set you up on a payment plan. And then if the payment plan doesn't work, you extend it. It's like, well, wait a minute. And I truly believe that you're going to eliminate so much business creation and investment that it would be, I think it would be catastrophic, honestly. Oh, there's Aaron right there. I love it. You can't send that other one out there. But I think it's a terrible idea, honestly. Not knowing the particulars like Mike, but on face value, if you tax unrealized gains, I mean, that would be brutal because a lot of us, like for real estate specifically, your wealth is in equity. So now you're going to have to tap into that equity to pay a bill that you don't even know if that's what the end result is going to be. And then that's what they mentioned is you're literally going to have to create a whole new job set or market to have people go out and determine what the value is of all these assets that they're going to tax. And then it's like, who the heck is to say that person? I don't know. I think it's a terrible idea.
And you lemmings, have we not learned that the more you just raise the price of everything, guess who eventually pays it? You do. The tenant will just pay more. Okay. Yeah. Look at all four of us. I guarantee pay more for just about everything than we did 5 years ago. Why? It's like, come on. How many times they got to play this trick? They're buying votes.
It sounds good in an ideal world, but we live in reality.
So does communism.
Right? Yeah, there we go. We could have, one parallel. It's just like, hey, just because we change the term doesn't mean the basic principle of what we're sharing is not the same thing, right? No, I think it sets a bad precedent, and it totally ruins the idea of an investment, right? Being long-term, thinking 5, 10, 15 years down the road, like you're planting these seeds. And if you start doing something like that, then what's to say, oh, the cap we set at 100 million, now it's people that own 10 million and then 1 million. And then it's just, it's a slippery slope for sure.
At the end of the day, if you ran your house like the federal government runs their checking account, we would all be in deep, deep trouble.
That's right.
We don't have an income problem. We have a spending problem. That's as simple as it gets.
Aaron, if you're still out there, I sent you a link. So invitation, if you do want to jump in, you're welcome to jump in. But REI Jared is also here in the chat, so thanks for stopping by. But he does rent by the room in Arizona. So anybody wants more information on what he's doing, go check out his YouTube channel. He's killing it out there, and he does private lending and whatnot too. So if you want to find out his story, go check him out. But yeah, Aaron, if you're out there, there's an invitation in your email. Come and join us if you want. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but you're welcome.
You got to rattle the cages, right? You can't just be complicit in what's going on in today's society.
Yeah. So that's the thing. A lot of guys, and they're like, oh, how many people, how many people actually have 100 million, net worth and all this. And I said, that's not really the point, right? It's more, how does it trickle down? Like, why do we want more taxes when government already has a spending problem? Like, I think if we can address that first, then okay, maybe we can justify more taxes, right? But it's more the spending issue that I have an issue with. So, but yeah, I think it's my first one. It's like probably like 30,000 views, and I almost don't like it because there's so much comments that come through my phone now, like notifications.
I'm curious though, what's the hate on though? People think that it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, they're like, why? How many? It doesn't
those
even
people
affect.
will leave.
Yeah,
That's what will
I said
happen.
I
All
tried
these
to give them
business
the
owners will
example of
leave.
California, right? Like, you have all these taxes, like Elon leaves. So how does that trickle down to now you're taking these businesses out of these areas? Now, how's it going to affect the people that are actually in California? Where are they going to get this money now, or lost revenue? But yeah, it's wild.
Yeah,
It's
real quick on that. They used France as an example. The
Oh,
French
God.
citizens, I know, but this is it. But this is interesting. Watch the French citizens who had that money. Exactly, Mike. They found out a way to get citizenship somewhere else, and they took all the money that was going to be taxed, and they bounced. And it's like now you're even in a worse spot than you were before because the taxes you were receiving from those people are no longer. So sorry to cut you off, Matt.
no. I was just gonna say, like, I think people underestimate just the amount of value and risk that business owners are taking to stimulate the economy, to provide, a living for working people in their company, and like to completely eliminate that is just like so ridiculous to even. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's stupid. It's just absurd. That's it. I'd be surprised. All those comments.
Yeah.
I kind of have an idea of where they're coming from, but do they own assets? Do they invest in their education? Do they take that accountability to be like, I could change the trajectory of my family and my family's family by putting in the work? They probably. I'm not general statement here again, but I don't think so.
Hey, Esther, good morning. Thanks for stopping by. Esther's in the Seattle, Washington area. She invests in Gary, Indiana, Texas, but she says it needs to have at least 25% cash flow to pay for realize. So where is this money going to come from? Or where's the money to pay for it? Yeah. So even like startups, right? You're going to have to start thinking about, I mean, yeah, it's going to be, 100 million net worth. So yes, but at the same time, it's something you have to consider if they ever start, lowering that amount or who gets taxed, right? So it is. I think I didn't follow the same thing as Mike. I don't want to gaslight people and whatnot, but I saw something Vivek was talking about it, about how like farmers are going to be affected because they don't have the cash to pay for these gains, right? So it's going to affect the farming industry and whatnot. But these people with a lot of assets or net worth or whatnot. So
And
yeah.
whether you have it or not, that's not the point. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like they got it for a reason. Like they got the gain because they went out there and did stuff other people weren't willing to do potentially. So quit punishing people that go out and work.
Yeah.
They don't want to see how the sausage is made. They just want to see it at the dinner table.
Yeah.
It's a good way to put it.
So Aaron, I won't read his comment, but he's driving to the beach. He says so. He's a spectator here today. He had some other words to say there, but I won't repeat it. But Mike, so you were, I believe, on Bigger Pockets episode 482, right? So how long? Well, how many was that? A couple years ago already, or how?
I don't know the episode number, but yes, it was probably about 3 to 4 years ago at this point.
So if
Maybe
someone was
more.
to go back and watch that episode and fast forward to today, how much probably has shifted in your mindset or what you're doing now?
That's a good question, and I should probably watch it myself or be reminded of what I said. I think at that point I was still largely just like working, kind of like grinding, like flipping and wholesaling and trying to get a rental here and there. And I think now I've shifted to kind of just, and by some standards, still small thinking, but I think I've shifted my thinking a little bit bigger. And instead of figuring out how I monetize like everything that comes across my desk per se, figuring out like what I like to do and what fits my wheelhouse at this point. And like we said a little bit ago, and the two main focuses now are my hard money lending business and at this point self-storage. And I kind of I say at this point because like I've looked at some other commercial assets, not just specifically self-storage, but as of right now, that those are probably the two that have changed the most. I don't wholesale anymore. I haven't direct to seller marketed for about 2 years. So that's changed. As far as rental properties, I've just gotten rid of the ones that, like we said, getting all wrapped up in a spreadsheet. On a spreadsheet, it looks like it's going to be this great producing asset. And at the end of the day, you're just like, this is a C minus property and a C minus area that's only ever going to probably be a C minus property. So like, let's take some of the juice out of it and go reinvest it somewhere else. Because I was like very against the whole, like, don't sell your rentals. And now I'm like, you know what? Like, that's kind of stupid. Like if you can find a higher and better use that fits what you're looking to do, sell it. So I would say those would be the biggest things that I can recall. So I don't know if that's necessarily mindset, but that the mindset that's transitioned into the way I'm operating now.
Cool. So if anyone wants to check it out, it is in the comments. So go check out his episode on Bigger Pockets. All Nighter Hider chiming in also. He says unrealized gains tax would incentivize more financial engineering and fire sales. No thanks. I'll opt out. Yeah.
The thing is, like, people who say, oh, there's a loophole. Like, no, there's stuff in the tax code that basically incentivizes you to do things, i.e. the 1031 exchange is not a loophole. It's in the tax code. So like these people that want their hands out and filled with everybody else's money, like they're the ones that sit there and say, oh, it's a loophole. No, it's clearly right there. You're allowed deductions. You're allowed to do these things, you know? Not that there isn't people that do things you're not allowed, but
exactly. Yeah. Oh no, go ahead.
Oh no, I'll say that's like Section 179 is that allows you to buy all these large vehicles, and then they were calling it like the gas guzzler loophole or whatever. It's like, well, no, if you think about it, the intent is for people who own companies to buy these large work vehicles to in turn grow their company, which is going to pour more tax revenue into more tax income for the government, more revenue for the owner, more jobs for their employees. Like Mike said, 1031, if you got taxed every time you sold a rental property or any investment property, so much of your gains would be erased that you couldn't go and turn. And what's the goal with the 1031? To buy a bigger property, which you're going to increase your property taxes and all of these things. So I think it's just that, like, it's the lens that we're looking through versus the lens that other people are looking through. There's a loophole. These people are taking advantage of the system. It's like, well, no, it's clearly written out and I'm playing by the rules. You can look at it that way. We're playing by the rules to the letter of the law.
Yeah. I'm getting ready to buy. So like there's these portable storage units that I already have a bunch of called Boxwells, and I'm getting ready to buy some more next week to do by the end of the year. And they're all Section 179 deductible because it's equipment. So I can write off the entire purchase of them this year against my income. And then, so think about it. So like it creates jobs to manufacture them. It creates jobs to ship them. It creates jobs to send people here from Colorado to set them up and install them. Then it's going to create jobs whenever, or not necessarily create jobs, but create revenue whenever I lease them and You know what I mean? It's like, it's a snowball effect that the tax code should, and I think does to some degree, incentivize you to reinvest into the economy, to then just kind of like keep snowballing jobs and buying equipment and buying properties. But anyways, we could go on till dinner time about the tax code and the absolute just pissing in the wind festival it is in DC.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great point, though. So even so, that was one of the comments too. Someone's like, "Oh, you're just going to incentivize more tax fraud and all these things." And like we're saying, it's like it's there, it's in the tax code. You have these opportunities also to take advantage of it, and that's another thing I think also. Like we kind of going a little bit off topic, but going back to like what when you first get into investing or real estate, there's all these tax side that people aren't kind of making you aware of, or these benefits or these tools that you can also access to improve your portfolio, what you're trying to do. So even the tax side, that's a whole nother thing. Like when you're getting started, like you got to find these people that are using the tax code or people that are skilled in that area. So there's so much other people to bring into your group of network, I guess, when you're starting to invest.
Yeah, this is the exposed, untold stories. So one thing I forgot about, and now that you mention it, made me think of it. When I first got investing in real estate, I had zero idea what depreciation really was, and severely underestimated its potential. So after like a year or two and getting a couple properties, I realized like, wow, this depreciation thing's pretty cool. So that's one of those things like wasn't even really on my radar whenever I bought my first place. But then after that, it's like, okay, good idea.
Hey, wait, so Matt, do you guys qualify as real estate professionals, or is that something you guys are trying to accomplish?
Dude, that's a loophole, man. No, so with that status, the way we're able to qualify is because we both have a W-2 job. Just I want to say when we work through our CPA, because we spend, oh man, is it 25 or 50% of our time or a year self-managing the Airbnb? My wife will essentially kind of get that, even though we're both still in a W-2 job. But again, like it's more of like an advanced strategy. Like I didn't go into rent, like doing my single family or Airbnb thinking that, oh man, like I'm making money on the real estate professional status, saving money, offsetting my earned income with passive losses, right? Like no, like you try to see how the numbers work. Okay, I can make some money. I got a little net profit here at the end of the month. And then you start developing, oh, hey, there's another strategy that I wasn't accustomed to. But only when I got to that point, you've kind of like, again, added that next tier or that next advanced strategy to your kind of portfolio.
So Jess is the brains, right? So that's why she married you said,
Dude,
or
that's what I'm saying. I'm just the face. She's the brains. She's gonna be doing the whole. I mean, she's going to law school, right? She's gonna be learning about the tax code.
What's up, Hugo? Thanks for stopping by. Go check out Hugo's podcast. What is it? Top 25 now? I forget what it was, but go check him out. His cool YouTube channel. He's doing not just real estate out there. He's doing crypto and everything. So go check him out there. Yeah, this is a good one. I like this topic. Kind of sorry, we're kind of going all over the place, but talking about the 1031 and taxes also. But that's also a great way to free up, like inventory or starter homes, right? Like you're saying, you're trying to get a bigger asset when you 1031. Now that's going to also allow these smaller units or smaller properties to be freed up. And if we get rid of these incentives, that's how we're limiting inventory for people to get in or get into the real estate or get their first property and whatnot, I think.
Yeah, I think people focus on addressing like all these maybe new policies that are rolling out, right? Or they're proposed, right? They all address demand and demand in the wrong way, like increasing demand, giving tax credits for first-time home buyers, right? Like I think you're losing sight of what's the real issue and the historic undersupply of housing, and in particular that first-time home buyer is going to just continue getting squeezed out by again government dipping their fingers in the private sector, letting the private sector just go ahead and reach that efficiency, which they can, which we've known the government is not the budget for a business or an efficiency standpoint. So
Yeah, like that $25,000 tax credit. I don't get it. But
another one, man.
yeah.
Well, then the other side is right. They said they want to build 3 million homes, I believe, and it's like, I mean, it's like you're saying, it sounds nice, but you've also were given $8 billion, and in 3 years built 3 or 8 EV stations or whatnot. So it's kind of like you say you're going to build 3 million homes, but how are you going to accomplish this? And same thing, right? It's inflationary. How fast can you build these homes? Right. So if you give the 25K to help with a down payment, and you're in the process of building some of these homes, that demand is going to eat up that supply. So you're constantly chasing, and when are you going to get to that 3 million? So same thing. It sounds nice, but it's like, how are you actually going to accomplish this? Another great question here, I think, and this is something I think for new investors getting started. Hey, hi there. There's your why, probably, right?
There it is.
It's my assistant.
All right.
Awesome.
That's not your kid can't, but somebody else put that. Can I have like unrealized dependents that I can get tax credit for on my taxes? But does interest rates really matter? I think that's something, as a new person getting started, you kind of get caught up in what the interest rates are. So is that something that you guys kind of look at every day, or you kind of just adjust your strategy based on whatever the rate's at?
I think mentally, well, first off, I'll let Tyler go. He's a mortgage guy.
I think we're going to be on the same page. I don't think it matters. I think you take what the rates are, you underwrite at today's rates. If it makes sense now, then you pull the trigger and do the deal. And then, just like anything, when enough time goes by and rates go back down, then you can refinance. Your deal becomes even better. But I think so many people get focused on trying to time the market with interest rates, and that's like almost an impossible task. Like I always post over and over, because it's true. It's time in the market versus timing the market. And that is, I mean, interest rates, we don't know. Right now, they're on a downward trend. Something could happen tomorrow, and all of the forecasts that everybody's made about them going down, they could shoot back up. So I just always underwrite to the deal and the rate that I have. And if it makes sense, then you pull the trigger.
Aaron chiming in with I can actually read his comment here. But housing costs have skyrocketed due to all the impact fees, safety measure, and cost to build, materials and labor. Bring back seats, rollback houses where people build themselves.
I think it meant Sears and Roebuck, but we got the idea.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and share my ignorance. You might have to describe what those houses are. What were they?
Have you ever heard of Sears department store?
Oh,
He's
yeah.
young. He's
Oh,
young.
okay.
You literally used to be able to buy a house out of their catalog
Yep.
or at the store, and it'd be basically shipped, basically like the precursor to the modular prefab home. I actually have one that was a Sears and Roebuck house. But
wow.
I mean, it's kind of like basically like a kit house, if you will. But yeah, man, the interest rate, I think we all kind of got a little spoiled and accustomed to 3%, 4%, 5%. And it's one of those things, like I was in the same boat. I went from on a commercial loan paying 4.5% to now 7.5%. And it's like, while it's getting better slightly right now, once you kind of like get acclimated that that's the new environment, and just like realize like, hey man, I can sit here and be pissed off about it, or just realize like, hey, now's this is the new norm. And like you said, I have to evaluate it at today's rates. So the one thing that's correlated is like the interest rate has gone up. Well, the interest rates I was talking about at 3%, 4%, well, the rental rates were not what they are now either. So it's kind of like the rent rate has gone up a lot compared to when I was paying 4%. Then, you know what I'm saying? maybe I'm not doing a good job describing it, but like the rental rates have gone up, maybe not in step with the mortgage rates, but they've increased also to help offset some of that. But now, yes, I just kind of got accustomed to like, hey, if I'm going to buy a rental, it's probably going to be at 6.5% or 7%. And if it makes sense now, okay. But yeah.
You want me to answer that, Mark, that question?
Yeah. So Aaron has a question for Tyson. What's the ratio of buyers to rate drops?
So what he's referring to, for every 1% in rate drop, 5 million buyers enter back into the market. So, I mean, and we were just talking about it already, we already have a housing shortage. That's 5 million people on the sidelines that jump back into the market. And then I think I was talking about this last week on the show, is it's cool to have both sides of the business. I have the retail, obviously, for mortgage, and then the investing side. Last week, it was like the faucet got turned back on to my mortgage company, like wide open. It was just like phone call, phone call, phone call. And that's because it was, the rate announcement from a week or two ago, people started jumping back into the market and all kinds of pre-quals. And these are all highly qualified buyers too. It's not people that, these are like firemen, W-2, they have good credit. So it's 5 million people for every 1% rate drop.
Yeah, and you also said you do DSCR lending, and what states can you help people in also?
For DSCR, I mean, almost every state, there's a few that you still have to have brick and mortar presence. Which, funny enough, one of them is in Idaho, which is where I do all my investing. I can't do DSCR loans there. But then as far as conventional VA, FHA, I can do California, Arizona, Texas, Washington, Oregon, and Florida.
Not New Orleans?
No, I do want to go down there though. Somebody I grew up with has a good restaurant down there that I've never eaten at. It's called is it La Petite Grocery? It's a
Oh, dude, funny enough, man. You come stay at our place. It's up the block on Magazine. That's
is it?
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Justin DeVilliers we grew up in Dana Point area, so I want to go check it out. It looks cool.
Hell yeah, man.
I'll have
Let me
to
know.
take you
We'll
up
link
on it.
up.
Okay.
All-Nighter Hider says the cost of control, the state has whittled away at margins with all their burdensome fees and time expenses. Yeah.
Must be in California.
Yeah, so that's another thing. I think I was watching a drunk real estate podcast who I got invited to play fantasy football with, so that's cool. But anyways, they were talking about, I think it's 30,000 or no, 30% for like these fees and regulations and restrictions on cost to build up extra fees on top of it. So like you're talking about it, dwindles away at margin. But then you also look, like we're saying, you mentioned California, where you look at like Texas, Florida, they're not having that much of an issue with building or supply, right? So it's the same thing, right? Regulations and policies and whatnot definitely affect the inventory of these different areas.
California is interesting too, right? Because of all the ADU stuff. It's like they're basically telling you we are not going to be able to keep up with housing the conventional way. So they're incentivizing homeowners to build ADUs to help them with their inventory problem. It's not like a secret. It's like, hey, there's overarching ADU regulation for the entire state because they realize this is such a problem. And why are they leaving it to the private individual? Because they're much more efficient than the government could ever be in doing this kind of stuff. To get things approved to build in California is a nightmare. I mean, you're years down the road.
Definitely. So actually on the lending side though, and I'm not completely accurate on it, and I think I've seen it. This might be something that possibly comes down the road. Do you see like a lending product for like ADUs in the future?
So I personally have not, and that doesn't mean there couldn't be, but I have not. But I do think, yeah, because I think, again, back to that point, I think these lenders are going to look to see where the market is headed and they want a piece of that pie. So as long as they can figure out a way to create a product that is going to be sellable on the secondary market, they'll absolutely do it. Just like if you think about DSCR, DSCR filled a void because that's a very common commercial product. They figured out a way to sell it on the secondary market using residential houses, and DSCR and all QM has blown up in the last few years. That's floated a lot of residential loan originators because of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I do, Mark. I think they'll figure out a way to do it. It'll be, I mean, probably similar to a construction loan, to where you have your draws, things like that, so stuff doesn't get out of control. But I absolutely think that they'll create a product for it. If they already haven't, I just have to be honest in the fact that to date, I don't know of one.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like you said, they'll figure out a way. If there's money to be made, someone will figure it out.
I think definitely to be clear, the they you're referring to are the business owners and entrepreneurs, not the
100%.
government regulation. So I think we gotta make sure that is a firm standstill. I think if you objectively like take a step back and understand where these businesses are going, they're leaving certain states and flooding to others, and then you're wondering why. Well, why would that business do that? Well, they can operate a business. There's not like killed in fees. There's people moving to there because they're creating jobs. There's population growth. You look at the Carolinas, the Tennessee, the Florida, Texas. It's like, what are the policies in place to let businesses thrive and flourish versus what is suffocating them in other areas? And I mean, you can just look at the numbers, not be subjective in making that determination. I think is at least what I'm understanding out.
So Casey says he thinks there's a Freddy second loan for ADU, maybe. So yeah, maybe something we can look into more, and next time we do this, we can have more information on it. Late Start Welch said would be nice if there was a construct refi permanent loan, construct the ADU and wrap it into refinance of the existing loan into a new property loan. Yeah. Like I said, someone will probably figure it out, or yeah, some business will probably figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Looks like they're right. It's called Freddie Mac's Choice Renovation Loan. I'll have to research it, and then the next time we're on, I'll be much more informed.
Cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well,
Slipping. Don't let it happen again.
I should have gave you this
Only the first
information.
cup. Give him a break. Only the first cup.
Hey, I could have bullshitted my way through and act like I knew that there was one.
Yeah.
Actually,
it's
though,
good.
in fairness,
The ADU thing for me is like kind of, I don't want to say foreign. I know what it is. We've talked about it, but like around here, the ADU thing it's not.
It's
really
like an efficiency unit.
prevalent. Yeah.
Yeah.
in fairness, I asked him last night kind of late if he could hop on. So in fairness, I was like, oh shit, yeah, I forgot to throw it out there. So that's why some of the thumbnails didn't have his picture on it, and I had to adjust it later.
I saw the one that you added on the outside. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah, I didn't want you to be insulted. Aaron would have been upset. That's why I didn't have his picture on there and he was on. So I figure I better make sure I get you on a couple of them at least.
Thank you.
yeah, he gets triggered. He's very delicate, as you can tell.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's welcome on anytime. I don't mind having him on. Yeah, it was fun last time. I definitely thought I was getting canceled the next time I came on, though.
Yeah, you might want to forget the go live button whenever you might hurt your show.
That's how
No,
you know.
I'm just
That's how you know you're talking about the right stuff, man.
kidding.
Nowadays.
No,
That's how you know. Don't
it's
let them
funny.
stop
Like,
you, Mark.
I don't know
Yeah,
what happened. None of the links worked. Tyler guys were trying to get on. Everyone's messaging me like the links don't work. Like,
Yeah, we
no
couldn't
one,
get on.
yeah, no one
Dude,
could get
shout
on.
out, man, bro.
you know, we joke about it, but sometimes you wonder how true some of it is. Like, God forbid you actually have your own thoughts and think what you state what you think. I mean, you're just hurt
Dude,
feelings
Andy
reports
Frisella
left
gets
and right.
dropped all the time.
Really?
His episodes, yeah, his episodes, he said on YouTube, he said my episodes get erased all the time.
Dude, that's
I
why
used to listen to him a lot.
That's why don't be a hoe, man. Share the show.
Yeah.
Share the show, baby.
Here he is. He is here. Let's see what he says.
Oh boy, you might want to rate that one for me.
Only one part of
Erase.
sensitive.
Yeah, it's your underdeveloped skull. It's a soft
So much for
spot
the
on
time
top of
delay
your
on
head.
this. But yeah, I used to listen to Andy all the time when he had MF CEO Project. I like that one a little bit better because right now I feel like it's just sometimes more like the National Enquirer.
He's bringing that back too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like. I mean, I still listen to him, but not like I used to. Just because I got tired of like, I don't know, just
Yes.
regurgitating all the stuff I hear in the media that I don't really want to hear.
Yeah.
But to your point,
Even though I agree with most of his viewpoints. What's that?
he's taking that off of YouTube. He's taking that off of all the public channels because of how often he gets his stuff removed. MFCEO will be on a private. I don't know what it is, but it's
Probably
something
like
totally
Circle
separate.
or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Does he
something
still have
totally
Arte
different.
Syndicate?
Yeah, he still has Arate. Yeah.
Are you in it still, or?
Yes, I am. I wasn't in it for a while, but yeah, I am.
Yeah, I was just curious. I haven't
That's
heard
sweet.
about it in a while.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they don't publicize it as much either. But I think it's awesome. I think it's like anything, this is kind of down the rabbit hole. Any mastermind, I do think you do have to go in person, and that's the one thing I haven't done with Arete is they have those meetups. I'm waiting. They do one at Andy's house every year, and that's the one I'm gonna do if I do it because his house looks insane.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
just do it.
Yep.
Go.
Rip the band. I mean, think about how much money I think we've both made from fuel. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole. I know you, Mark is in ORATs. Same thing. You start networking with people. I think it's not at any cost, but most cost is justified. I would think.
Yeah, dude, I just, you know, I won't put it out there just because I know he doesn't advertise it, but I'm going to one in a month that I've been to previously. And I just talked about this and how you need to get a mentor. And like, there's nothing against all the free information out there, because I certainly like went through a ton of it. But then once I paid for the Sean Terry program and was like doing the coaching, dude, it forced me to get like way more serious and like just that switch. So like I was telling at our meetup last week, I probably spent $1,000 or $2,000 to get in the one group, and it was a 2-day meeting. But that was, I can literally point to, that was the lead domino that then started my storage investing. And I just had it evaluated by a broker. Like that $2,000 investment is translated to potentially almost a 7-figure equity position.
Wow.
And that's like, so don't be afraid to pay to get in that right room, man. And like, it's one of them things. Like I use the example, like, okay, just say I spend $7,000 for this event next month, 2 days, 2.5. By the time it's all said and done, $7,000 to $8,000. Some people are going to say, like, are you kidding me? That's how much? And some people are going to say, that's it, you know? But to your point, like, think about how much money you've made on the backside of a lot of that stuff. If you look at it day one, yeah, it doesn't look like you've made much, but think about it over the course of a year, 5 years, 10 years. So, but yeah.
Yeah. It's like someone buying a new Tesla today and then not driving.
You know, like you said, we're planting seeds for the future. Now, I will say, I think, like you said, getting in the right rooms, getting that exposure to a different mindset, that secret society, if you will, because we're not taught it growing up.
It's like the Freemasons.
Dude. Yeah, exactly, man. Just change the name, right? They're doing it nowadays.
Oh, it is?
Just change the name.
Yeah. I'm just re-listening right now to Think and Grow Rich. Like it's one of those books I listen to probably once a year.
Yeah.
And it's just funny how many of those principles from like the 1930s or 1910 are still applicable today. You know?
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap things up, if there's anything else you want to talk about, but let's dig into talking about networking and getting in these right rooms. So why don't you talk about a little bit like the first responder, financial freedom, Facebook group, podcast, and like Matt, he's in the Coast Guard. Is he someone that could join the Facebook group, or is it for like, like saying first responders?
No, so first off, we like approve everybody that requests to join, and like we have people in the military and just all different, broadly speaking, first responder, forward facing type jobs. And the whole point is to just normalize conversations like we've had in talk about financial literacy, financial freedom, and just helping guys flip that switch from thinking only earning money when you trade time for money and learning how to make money with leverage, and not necessarily meaning debt, but like making money even though you're not present, i.e. investing in properties, etc. So that's one of those things, depending on where you work, your shift makeup, your circle of friends, you may talk about that stuff already, or you could be like probably 95% of the, at least I'll speak about firefighters. Like you mentioned something like that around the kitchen table and everybody has a reason why you shouldn't do it. But then again, always, not that they're bad people, but think about where you're getting your advice from. If they're not making 2, 3, 4 times more than you are a year, they're probably not the person to give you the most applicable financial advice. So that's kind of what it is. We do a podcast show almost every Monday. We need to do it more often, but we're getting there. And yeah, nothing to sell, nothing to buy, just share information.
Cool.
Hell yeah.
Casey's responding to Aaron's comment earlier. He says, I got 2 sensitive areas, I guess, or parts of me, I'm assuming.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
it.
And then you're
Hyder
like, wait a
says,
second, is KC, Casey? Then
yeah,
you're
he
like,
says Casey. He goes,
oh,
yeah.
it is a guy? Okay.
Yeah.
Then you start wondering, you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
When I pay, I stay. It's a way to prove the one wanting the info or network. Free stuff attracts everyone, not just the right fit. Yep. Great point, Hyder.
Yeah. There's tons of information out there on this stuff for free. And I tell people like everything you need is out there. But I find that like if I want to go quicker, you're just paying for a coach or a system like that is just, in my opinion, cutting down your learning curve.
Yeah. Agreed.
Great points. All right. Well, anything else you guys want to dig into? Any comments you guys want to say to Aaron before we he did say
Hi,
so-
Aaron.
I didn't check. Who is any one of you streaming on Facebook right now? He just messaged me saying the Facebook one is lagging. So I didn't because I don't usually link to Facebook, so I don't know if
I don't know, honestly, whether
Okay.
I've linked or not linked to anything. I just hit buttons till it let me in.
All right. Well, I'll go check it out later, but I usually link it to X, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So
Okay.
I'm not sure, but
I think
Cool.
Nah, that's all I got, but thanks for having me.
no,
Yeah,
this,
thank
it's
you.
always thanks for doing this, you guys. I mean, yeah, we'll do it again, and we'll get Aaron on next time, and we'll just be unfiltered, uncensored that one, and anything
He
goes.
really wants to talk about DEI in the workplace.
Oh man, I should have him as a guest speaker at my all hands. Yeah, I'll be out of a job.
You probably would.
Yeah, that's funny.
It would be comical.
No, he's hilarious, man. Go check him. Shit, go check out. I'll put his links real fast. But you got to check out his work that he does too on Instagram. The woodwork
It's
stuff
like
he does.
Burnt Fire Creations or something.
Yeah,
Wildfire?
Yeah, it's it.
I believe
It doesn't
that.
really roll off the tip of my tongue when I have to try and remember what it is.
I thought I had it
Yeah,
say
yeah.
shit. Maybe I'll get it next time.
All right.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Hey, well, good to meet
Cool.
y'all. Thanks for letting me.
Yeah,
hop
man.
on.
Good to
You
meet you.
too.
All right. Thanks,
Take care,
everyone. We'll
guys.
do it again.
See you guys.
All right.